Sarah Martinez had always been the type of person who followed rules. Fresh out of college with a computer science degree, she landed her dream job at Innovate Tech, one of the city's most prestigious software companies. The sleek glass building, the free coffee, the ping-pong tables, everything seemed perfect for a 28-year-old starting her career. It was her third week when she first noticed something odd. Working late on a debugging project, Sarah realized she was one of the few people left in the office. The cleaning crew had finished, security was doing their rounds, and most floors were dark except for the emergency lighting. But the executive floor, the 15th floor, was still brightly lit. Sarah's curiosity got the better of her. She'd never been to the executive floor, despite having access with her employee badge. Most junior developers never had reason to go there. As she stepped out of the elevator, she was struck by how different it felt from her floor. The carpet was thicker, the walls were real wood, and there was an expensive silence that money creates. She walked down the hallway, telling herself she was just exploring. The offices were dark, but she could see light coming from under a door at the end of the corridor. The nameplate read, "Conference Room A, authorized personnel only." The door was slightly ajar. Sarah knew she shouldn't look, but something compelled her forward. Through the crack, she could see several people in expensive suits sitting around a large table. Charts and graphs covered the walls, but these weren't normal business presentations. The charts showed locations, dates, and what looked like casualty numbers. One voice rose above the others. The Riverside incident was contained. Local authorities ruled it an industrial accident. The families have been compensated and signed NDAs. Sarah's blood ran cold. Riverside was a small town about 50 miles away where a chemical plant had exploded 6 months ago, killing 12 people and injuring dozens more. Sarah fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking as she tried to activate the camera. But as she shifted her weight, the old floorboard creaked loudly. The conversation in the room stopped immediately. "Did you hear that?" someone asked. Sarah heard chairs scraping against the floor. Without thinking, she turned and ran toward the stairwell, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone in the building could hear it. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work, trying to act normal, but everything felt different. Every glance from a coworker seemed suspicious. Every email notification made her jump. She couldn't concentrate on her code, her mind racing with questions about what she'd heard the night before. During lunch, she decided to research the Riverside incident. What she found in news articles matched what the official reports said: a tragic industrial accident at a chemical processing plant. But as she dug deeper into technical forums and local news sites, she found residents complaining about health issues that started weeks before the explosion. Sarah discovered something else troubling. The chemical plant was owned by a subsidiary of a subsidiary that eventually traced back to Innovate Tech. Her company wasn't just a software firm. They were involved in industrial operations she'd never heard about. That afternoon, she made a decision that would change everything. Using her database access for research purposes, she began searching the company's internal servers. What she found made her stomach turn. Innovate Tech had been developing software for chemical processing plants, but not just management software. They were creating systems designed to bypass safety protocols and environmental monitoring. The software could make dangerous chemical processes appear safe to regulatory systems while actually operating at illegal levels. The Riverside plant wasn't an accident. It was the result of a software malfunction that Innovate Tech had built intentionally. The company was selling dangerous technology to industrial clients who wanted to cut costs by ignoring safety regulations. When accidents happened, Innovate Tech's legal team would swoop in, pay off victims, and cover up their involvement. Sarah printed out the most damning documents and smuggled them out in her laptop bag. But she wasn't the only one working late that night. As she prepared to leave, she noticed Marcus Webb, the head of security, standing by the elevators. He was looking directly at her. "Sarah, right? How are you settling in?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Working late again, I see. Very dedicated." His voice had an edge that made her skin crawl. "Just trying to get ahead on my projects," she replied, forcing a smile. Marcus nodded slowly, his gaze moving to her laptop bag. "That's great to hear. We've had some security concerns lately. Some sensitive information has been accessed without proper authorization. We're monitoring all network activity very closely. The threat was barely veiled. Sarah's mouth went dry. They knew. Somehow, they knew she'd been digging into their files. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Every car that passed her apartment, every footstep in the hallway, made her think she was being watched. She knew she had to act fast, but she also knew she was in over her head. The next morning, she called in sick and spent the day researching whistleblower protections and trying to figure out who she could trust. She contacted a journalist at the city's largest newspaper, but when she tried to explain the situation, it sounded crazy even to her own ears. "You're telling me a software company is intentionally causing industrial accidents?" the journalist asked skeptically. "That's a pretty serious accusation. Do you have proof?" Sarah did have proof, but when she tried to access the documents she'd printed, her heart sank. Her apartment had been broken into. Nothing was missing except the papers she'd hidden in her bedroom closet. Even worse, her laptop had been remotely wiped clean. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Every car that passed her apartment, every footstep in the hallway, made her think she was being watched. She knew she had to act fast, but she also knew she was in over her head. The next morning, she called in sick and spent the day researching whistleblower protections and trying to figure out who she could trust. She contacted a journalist at the city's largest newspaper, but when she tried to explain the situation, it sounded crazy even to her own ears. "You're telling me a software company is intentionally causing industrial accidents?" the journalist asked skeptically. "That's a pretty serious accusation. Do you have proof?" Sarah did have proof, but when she tried to access the documents she'd printed, her heart sank. Her apartment had been broken into. Nothing was missing except the papers she'd hidden in her bedroom closet. Even worse, her laptop had been remotely wiped clean. Panicking, she called her best friend Jenny and asked to meet at a crowded coffee shop downtown. As she explained everything, Jenny's expression grew increasingly worried. "Sarah, you need to go to the police or the FBI. This is way bigger than you can handle alone," Jenny urged. But Sarah had learned something else during her research. Innovate Tech had contracts with several government agencies. The company had relationships everywhere: local government, state officials, even federal contracts. Who could she trust? That afternoon, Sarah made a desperate decision. She returned to the office, knowing it might be a trap, but she needed access to the internal servers one more time. This time, she wasn't just looking for documents. She was going to download everything and send it to every journalist, government agency, and advocacy group she could find. Using her access badge, she entered the building and went straight to her workstation. But as she began downloading files, alarms started blaring throughout the building. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice announced, "Security breach detected. Building lockdown initiated." Sarah's computer screen went black, then displayed a message, "Unauthorized access detected. Security en route." She could hear footsteps running down the hallway toward her floor. With no other options, she grabbed the flash drive from her computer and ran toward the emergency stairwell. But as she opened the door, Marcus Webb was waiting for her, along with 2 other security guards. "I really hoped it wouldn't come to this, Sarah," Marcus said calmly. "You're a bright young woman. You could have had a great career here." "People died because of what this company does," Sarah said, backing away from them. "The families in Riverside, the workers at those plants, they deserve to know the truth." Marcus shook his head. "The truth is complicated. Innovate Tech employs thousands of people. We contribute millions to the local economy. Sometimes, for the greater good, certain information needs to remain private." It was then that Sarah realized the full scope of what she was up against. This wasn't just a corporate cover-up. It was a systematic operation designed to sacrifice human lives for profit, with the full knowledge and protection of people in powerful positions. What happened next changed everything, not just for Sarah, but for hundreds of families who had been silently suffering while Innovate Tech covered up their crimes. Sarah had prepared for this moment. Before entering the building that final time, she had uploaded all the evidence she'd gathered to a secure server and set up automated emails to be sent to multiple journalists, government agencies, and advocacy groups if she didn't check in every 12 hours. When Marcus and his security team detained her in that stairwell, they thought they had contained the situation. But Sarah's dead man's switch was already in motion. The story broke simultaneously across multiple news outlets within 48 hours. Tech giant's deadly software exposed. Read headlines across the country. The leaked documents showed not just the Riverside incident, but a pattern of negligence spanning 5 years and affecting communities in 12 states. Innovate Tech's stock price plummeted 60% in the first week. Federal investigators raided the company's offices, and several executives were arrested on charges ranging from criminal negligence to conspiracy to commit fraud. But the real victory came when Sarah testified before a congressional committee investigating corporate accountability in industrial safety. Her testimony led to new legislation requiring transparency in safety software and stronger protections for whistleblowers. Sarah herself faced challenges. Innovate Tech tried to sue her for breach of contract and theft of proprietary information, but the charges were dropped when the full extent of the company's crimes became public. She received death threats and had to relocate twice. But she also received support from advocacy groups and other whistleblowers who had been fighting similar battles. Today, Sarah works as a cybersecurity consultant, specializing in ethical technology development. She helps companies identify potential safety risks in their software before they can cause harm. She's become a sought-after speaker on corporate responsibility and the importance of speaking up when you witness wrongdoing. The Riverside community finally got the answers they deserved. Families received proper compensation, and a memorial was built to honor those who died. More importantly, the new safety regulations prevented similar tragedies at dozens of other facilities across the country. Innovate Tech was ultimately broken up, with its legitimate software divisions sold to companies with better safety records. Marcus Webb and 3 other executives received prison sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. What can we learn from Sarah's story? Sometimes doing the right thing requires tremendous personal courage, especially when facing powerful interests that profit from silence. But as Sarah often says in her speeches, the cost of speaking up was high, but the cost of staying silent would have been measured in human lives. Her story reminds us that in our interconnected world, the software and technology we create has real-world consequences. Every line of code, every system we build, affects real people living real lives. We all have a responsibility to consider the ethical implications of our work. The next time you see something that doesn't seem right in your workplace or community, remember Sarah's story. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stayed silent? Who might be harmed by inaction? Sometimes, one person willing to stand up can save hundreds of lives and change an entire industry. What do you think you would have done in Sarah's situation? Have you ever witnessed something that made you question whether you should speak up? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to find the courage to do what's right.